Greetings, loves. It is I. Oh. God. Yeah. Oh my god. Ouch. Oh my god. Sorry about that, loves. It is I, Tactical Girlfriend. Glad to have you back here on the channel. I hope you're all doing well. At the time of filming this video, we are presently experiencing massive fires on the West Coast, a global pandemic, and an election year. So needless to say, the firearms market is absolute garbo right now, and that also is heavily reflected in ammo prices. Most folks are not spending very much time at the range these days, and that is especially because it is more prohibitive and less accessible than ever. So what we need to do is try to focus on what is already an essential tool in our toolbox for training, and that is dry fire. So what exactly is dry fire? Well, dry fire is going to be when you are going through all the motions that you possibly can to train with your firearm without firing a shot. So instead of loading your firearm with live ammunition for training as you normally would do, you are simply going to be firing with nothing loaded at all, or snap caps, which are basically an inert copy of a live round that does not go bang. So why would you opt to use a snap cap as opposed to dry firing on an empty chamber? Well, snap caps help prevent wear and tear on the firing mechanism by preventing overextension of the firing pin. This is especially a concern on rimfire guns as well as various older models. When in doubt, consult your manual. A more advanced alternative to snap caps is going to be a laser bore snap cap. When struck, these emit a temporary laser that can be used to track your shots on apps like G-Sight Pro and Laser Range. Another useful item can be something to prompt your simulated shots, such as a shot timer. This is a packed shot timer with tape placed over the speaker to soften its volume. Before we dive too deep into dry fire practice, we first need to take some safety precautions, and that means making sure that no live rounds can possibly find their way into the gun that you are training with. So you're going to make sure that your chambers are clear, your magazines are empty, and that all live rounds in that room are either safely locked away or moved to a different room. The entire goal of dry fire practice is to study how your body interacts with your firearm and improve your techniques to better be able to shoot live rounds effectively. I will always stress that the most important fundamentals can all be learned through dry fire. Alright, so your firearm is clear, your magazine is devoid of any live rounds, and you have found a safe direction to point your firearm while doing your dry fire training. So the first thing that we're going to try to study here is how our trigger feels and moves. What you're going to do is go to extension, put your finger on the trigger, pull back very slowly. You're going to feel that wall, take note of the wall, then pull all the way back until you hear that click. That means that you've completed the entire firing travel of your trigger. Take note of every little thing that you notice here because this will better inform how you place your shots in the future. Another thing to note, with most firearms, you don't necessarily need to rack the slide or charge the bolt all the way back to cycle the action of the firearm. This is especially useful when you're training with dummy rounds so that you don't eject them. You can simply charge the slide back about halfway and it should reset. For the next exercise, you are also going to be repeatedly doing trigger pulls while focusing on your sights to ensure that your sights are not shaking out of alignment when you are pulling that trigger back. What tends to happen is that you jerk the trigger or you pull it inconsistently and then your sights get knocked off of target. What you're basically going to do is go up to a blank wall, touch the muzzle of your gun to the wall, then back off just very slightly to give yourself a little bit of breathing room, and then put your finger on the trigger, aim your sights. If you're using iron sights, watch that front sight post, make sure that you have acquired a good sight picture and that everything is lined up properly, and then just pull back and watch where that sight goes. You're going to try to study this as much as you possibly can to obtain a very consistent pull with your sights. You don't want them deviating to any direction throughout the travel of that trigger. The litmus test for our trigger study is going to involve taking a coin, in this case a penny, and balancing it on our front sight post if we can, going up to that blank wall, doing the same trigger pull over again, focusing on the sights, pulling back slowly and consistently, making sure that the coin doesn't fall off. As with all these things, you're going to try to get consistent results. So once you get a good balanced shot, try to do it over and over again, and the more you can do it, the better. Seek to always improve this. Once we're satisfied with the results from our trigger study, we are going to work on establishing a good, consistent grip. You're going to start by simply putting your gun on a table in front of you, and simply grabbing the gun and bringing it up. You don't need to bring it to full presentation here. All we're trying to do is focus on getting the gun consistently in a very solid grip without even thinking about it. Do this over and over again until you are very satisfied with a very consistent grip. Once good grip has been established as second nature, we're going to incorporate the next stage, and that is presentation. We're going to still grab the gun off of the table. We're simply going to extend and acquire our sight picture. Keep doing this over and over again until you get good, consistent results. Once you're certain that your presentation incorporates a very consistent sight picture, you can start to work on prepping your shot. And this means hitting the wall as you extend to presentation. This doesn't mean pulling it all the way back prematurely, firing the shot off without actually acquiring your target. It means simply lining everything up while sitting on that wall. What you're going to do is put the gun on the table, and you guessed it, grab it, establish a good grip, put your finger on the trigger, start to extend and pull the trigger back at the same time and acquire your sight picture. You're just going to be sitting on that wall when you acquire your sights. You don't need to pull the trigger all the way back. You're just trying to set up your shot consistently so that you don't waste time slapping that trigger and potentially knocking your sights off once you actually set up your shot. You can probably guess what's happening next here. We're going to pull the trigger all the way back. Once again, put the gun on the table, pick it up, establish good grip, extend, pulling back on that wall, acquire sights, and then finally pull the trigger back. And then reset, start all over again, do the same thing over and over again. Once we're certain that we're establishing a good grip, a good presentation, a good setup on the wall, and a good trigger pull, we're going to then introduce resets. The reset on a semi-automatic firearm is when you pull the trigger to fire your first shot, and the action automatically cycles to fire your second. However, we're doing dry fire, so we have to manually do this by cocking the bolt or slide. With a trigger reset, we are essentially trying to get back up on that wall as soon as we can so that we can follow up with a consistent follow-up shot. What you're going to do is pull that trigger back, release quickly, get back up on that wall after cycling, and then pull back again. You're not trying to pin the trigger back and wait for the action to cycle so that you can move back off of the trigger, then establish the wall again. You want to immediately bounce off of that and get back on the wall as soon as you possibly can. Once you've got a very good feel for that trigger reset, you're going to then incorporate it into your standard drill here by picking the gun up off the table, establishing a good grip, extending out, pulling back, feeling that wall, acquire sight picture, pull, break, and then reset, back again, and again, and again. Now, if you're using a pistol and have a holster, you should always have a holster, you can incorporate this step as your final stage. What you're going to do is instead of grabbing it off the table, you're just going to draw from the holster, grip, pull back wall, extend, sight picture, break, and then simply reset and just do it over and over again. One really quick important note here, I'm training with a CZ P10C, which does not have a manual safety. It only has a trigger safety. If your firearm that you're dry firing with has a manual safety, make sure that you are incorporating actuating that in your presentation. Another really important technique to practice here are reloads. If your firearm locks back on an empty mag, insert an empty mag, lock the slide or bolt back, and have another magazine handy loaded with a snap cap to chamber when you do your reload. When you are ready, present your firearm, acknowledge that it needs to be reloaded, grab your spare mag, and at the same time, release the one that is in, insert the mag, Release the slide, chamber the round, aim, set up your shot, and fire. Once you're getting more confident with the motions here, you should start incorporating aiming. You should start consistently aiming at items in your room. This can include light switches, thermostats, or bits of wall art. You can put up pieces of tape, or if you really want to get fancy, you can incorporate real targets. Once you get the aiming part down, you should start incorporating target transitions. Present, aim, fire, rack, move over to the next rack, back and forth. You can do this with multiple objects in the room. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that you're practicing and staying dynamic. If you're feeling really frisky here, you can try incorporating some more advanced moves. This can include using a pistol one-handed. It can also include training with a pistol in your non-dominant hand. If you're using a long gun, you can try switching from your dominant side to your non-dominant side back and forth. The point of this is to all incorporate moves that you may not necessarily conventionally want to use, but in various situations you may have to. One thing you can also try is to find your natural point of aim. What you're going to do is close your eyes, present a firearm blindly on a target, then open your eyes and see where in relation to the target your firearm is pointed. The point of this is to make some small adjustments, note those adjustments, and then try again until these two things start to intersect and your natural point of aim is very well understood. Well, that about wraps up my fundamentals for dry fire practice. I hope this is a useful guide and template for folks looking for some inspiration for dry fire drills to practice more at home, as well as people looking for tips and tricks with dry fire in general. I want to say that if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, to like, comment, and subscribe. I also want to give a big shout out to all my patrons out there on Patreon. Really appreciate all of your support. And so that does it for yet another video with yours truly. I really appreciate you all tuning in, and as always, take care. Bye!